A very good evening and welcome to Network. My name is Spumelele Zondi. Now, Vodacom and other mobile phone network providers have closed some services in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We'll tell you the reasons in tonight's program. We'll also go to Kenya to tell you about how a Twitter hashtag helped a group of primary school children. In tonight's discussion, we have information on what happens to waste from your electronic products. We are live. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. It's newsnetwork@sabc.co.za. On email. Let's start with your social media and technology news. Now, the protesters say all mobile phone operators were ordered by the government in the Democratic Republic of Congo to shut down internet and SMS services. Critics say government is trying to control information flow because of violent protests in the country. The protesters are accusing President Joseph Kabila of ignoring the constitution that forces him to step down and postpone the election. These images showing protests and clashes between police and citizens in the Democratic Republic of Congo have made it to social media. It's estimated that about 45 people have died as protesters are accusing President Joseph Kabila of trying to ignore the constitution and extend his stay in power. Social media then became one of the methods locals, journalists and humanitarian groups have been using to share information about what's happening in the country.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands to say, hey, if I cannot talk to the state directly, if I cannot comment on media like I would have in other Western societies where you can pick up the phone and call media and comment, then I can actually do it on my own phones.
But now that's also become impossible in many parts of the DRC. Mobile phone network providers have been ordered to shut down data and text messaging services. One of the mobile phone giants operating in that country is Vodacom. They could not speak to us on camera, but in a statement, they have confirmed that the mobile operators were also instructed to suspend SMS services in accordance with Article 46 of the Telecommunications Law of the DRC. But Media Monitoring Africa feels Vodacom and other network providers should have not complied.
For a company like Vodacom to shut down internet service, it essentially means that they have cut an essential part of the DRC people, which is communication. Okay, communication enables all the other rights that you can think of. Now, cutting internet services or internet connection and SMS services is essentially denying those people their rights to communicate.
Media Monitoring Africa says it's also become apparent that network providers chose the easy way out, and that is to listen to the government so they aren't stopped from operating in the country. Now, social media has been a big talking point this week. In Kenya, many on Twitter started the hashtag Occupy Playground. This after a group of primary school children protested on a playground outside their school. They were angry at the private developer that the government had sold the playground to after the worldwide trend of the hashtag construction has stopped.
These kids felt they were being ignored by authorities who had sold off their playground to a private developer. Tear gas was used to disperse the 8 to 14-year-old students. On seeing this, people in the vicinity took to social media and started the hashtag Occupy Playground. The hashtag became popular in Kenya, South Africa and other parts of the world. Even American media started reporting on what they were reading on Twitter. Thousands started sharing their outrage and disappointment at the Kenyan government and police. One of those that tweeted was social political activist and award-winning Kenyan photojournalist Boniface Mwangi.
This is kids' action. They want back the playground and they came to take back the playground.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta said some people would be held responsible for what had happened. Meanwhile, in Europe, social media has come under scrutiny. This after heightened terror alerts after the murders of cartoonists in France. The French government is calling for internet companies to act more responsibly.
On peut évidemment s'abriter.
There are hate videos, calls for death, propaganda that has not been responded to, and we need to respond. We must limit the dissemination of these messages. We must establish a legal framework so that internet platforms, the large companies managing social networking, so that they are called upon to act responsibly.
French authorities want the UN to help create internet and social media frameworks that can assist in the fight against terrorism.
Africa's largest democracy, Nigeria, is headed to the polls in February, and Google, the largest internet search engine, is cashing in on this. The company has launched an online portal, which is a one-stop site of all material related to the upcoming Nigerian elections. And all that information can be accessed on desktops, tablets, and even mobile phones.
The world's largest internet search engine, Google, on Tuesday launched an online portal for the Nigerian elections. Here, Google users can view all news, videos and digital media stories to have appeared about the elections. And all this information can be accessed using desktops, tablets and even mobile phones. Google also says the internet continues to play an increasingly major role in the way political parties and voters take part in elections in Africa. For instance, the elections portal by the search engine in Nigeria has interactive platforms that will enable the presidential candidates to better articulate their manifestos to the voting public. The voting public can also voice issues of interest to them.
Instant messaging application WhatsApp has been trending in the technology media world this week. First news of a R7 scam on the application made the rounds, and secondly, the mobile chat app announced that it will now be available on computers and desktops. Here's more.
Instant messaging application WhatsApp has been doing the rounds in the media this past week. First, news of a scam involving the application had tech expert Liron Sejev appearing in various media outlets educating people about this particular scam. Secondly, the Facebook-owned app announced that users can now download WhatsApp on their computers.
What these guys have done is they've actually targeted the WhatsApp users. And the way it works is very, very simple. They'll send you an SMS saying there's a WhatsApp add-on update and click here on this link. You click on the link, it takes you to a website. And the website's got a nice green button that says continue. And you press continue. Obviously then nothing happens. What does in fact happen is that you've signed up for a service that charges you R7 per day.
This scam can easily cost users a good R200 or more per month. Following news of the scam, WhatsApp trended in technology news yet again with the launch of the WhatsApp web service on Wednesday.
There have been other applications, instant messaging applications, such as WeChat, for example, that has allowed you to do a desktop as well as a mobile phone. Another one called Telegram also allows you to do the same thing. Because it's something that we want. You know, it's nice to type on your phone when you're out. But if you're sitting in front of your computer, why not be able to use your keyboard and your mouse to get the same experience?
Though a good expansion for Facebook, the desktop version of the chat application will only be limited to Google Android, BlackBerry and Windows operating systems. It seems like Apple iTunes users are just going to have to wait their turn.
Internet giant Google is looking to get into the car-making industry as they unveiled their version of an autonomous car. The company has started courting the world's top automakers in an effort to partner with them and speed up the creation of its self-driving cars by the year 2020.
Google has started with tests for its self-driving cars. They will have all the automotive parts such as a steering wheel, brakes and an accelerator pedal. Each of the cars will have a test driver on board during testing, although the test driver won't be able to intercede as there is no provision for that.
We've been talking with the automotive community for the last few years. We are really excited about the technology. We are excited to push it forward for all the benefits and safety and convenience and just kind of making the world a better place.
As the autonomous car sprint continues, at the beginning of January, Mercedes-Benz unveiled its version of the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. This means Google is competing with companies that have been making cars for decades.
We know that there are people who know how to do that. It turns out that the automotive industry is really well established. They've got so many just hard-won lessons from the last century. Right, for us to jump in and say that we can do this better today, it's just arrogant, right? Really, that's not it, right? What we want to do is we have this particular experience and knowledge in computer science that we're bringing to solve some of the really challenging problems of the technology, and then use that in combination with the experience that Detroit and other automotive centers around the world have.
While the Google car is simple compared to the luxurious Mercedes-Benz prototype, Google says that their prototype is going to evolve over time.
It's SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter, News Network at sabc.co.za on email. After the break, we'll talk about e-waste products. Stay with us.
Warm welcome to AM News on SABC News Channel 404. Pistorius was sentenced to 5 years in prison for killing his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day last year. He was not found guilty of murder but of culpable homicide. The state feels that they are entitled to request that certain questions around the judgment and sentence should be reserved for the Supreme Court of Appeal. State Advocate Gerrie Nel called the sentence shockingly inappropriate. If the appeal is successful, Pistorius would face a minimum of 15 years in prison. Corky was killed during a dramatic botched rescue operation by American Special Forces in Yemen on Saturday. Corky's wife, Yolandi, says the family has chosen to forgive and rejoice in the memories of her husband.
At 5:59 on Saturday morning, I told Yolandi, the waiting is almost over. You give it that kind of optimism, and 2 hours later you get a call to say he's not anymore. It's devastating. I'm very sad for her, but she's a very strong woman.
That's AM News, daily at 10 a.m. on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
It's SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back. Now, we've talked about electronic and electric waste recycling projects by Orange Telecommunications taking place in Senegal. Ericsson now has its own e-waste recycling project. They're shipping the waste from your computers and mobile phones from Benin in West Africa to Durban in South Africa. Joining us in studio for more information on this is Frederick Yaitling, head of Ericsson in Sub-Saharan Africa. Hello, and thank you for being a part of our network.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe I should also mention that we have Stacey Davidson, who is from Rhodesia. She's joining us in Cape Town. Hello to you, Stacey.
Hi, evening.
Maybe we can start with you, Frederick. Sure. How big of a problem is e-waste?
Well, e-waste is a global problem, and it exists in Europe, it exists in the US, across the world, but also in Africa. I think it's slightly bit different thing in Africa, because here the e-waste problem is more of an import problem than an export problem. So there's a bit of a symmetry into it. So a lot of some Western African countries take on some of the e-waste worldwide and then have to deal with it, sometimes in not a proper way. And that's why we partly initiated this initiative.
Let's talk about something that you're saying in Africa it's a bit more of an import problem. Yeah. So this waste would be coming in from Europe, North America. Where would it be coming from?
Well, there is, of course, there is an illegal trade of waste or e-waste material coming in. And that poses a problem for these receiving countries. And now, of course, e-waste production, so to speak, is becoming a problem in Africa as well, and expected to grow by about 3 times over the next 5 years. So it's becoming a problem also from this sort of outbound perspective in Africa as well.
Stacey, in Cape Town, let's bring you in there. If e-waste is being brought into South Africa, could you just tell us about how it's taxed? Is it taxed at all?
Well, I can't speak for e-waste. Recently, the Department of Environmental Affairs has indicated that they're interested in implementing a tax for all appliances with a plug. However, we do have a problem with waste, and at Rhodesia we've sort of we have in fact created a concept called waste into worth, because we need to start viewing waste differently. I think it's time that we change the paradigm and start seeing waste as an opportunity to harvest resource and commodities. And that's really more of the debate that we should be looking at, because by doing this, by harvesting your waste, you are in fact able to address many of our socio-economic challenges, job creation, high unemployment, small business development, and of course the most important one, environmental remediation.
Frederick, you bringing the e-waste to South Africa. Why South Africa specifically?
Well, we started this project in Benin to start with, and typically we have two ways of dealing with e-waste in Ericsson. Number one, we take back all the end-of-support, end-of-life products that we put into the environment, so to speak, and from there on we typically recycle about 95-98% of that, including precious metals and whatever it might be. Now, in addition to that, we expanded this a little bit now in Benin, and also expanded it to include consumer goods as well. In order for us to facilitate full end-to-end, this is a fairly complex process to take care of this, and I agree with Stacey, there's a bit of an opportunity in here as well. In South Africa, we bring it to South Africa and Durban because one of our global vendors that deals with this in our sort of stringent ways of looking at this from an end-to-end perspective is located in Durban. So that's one of our plans that we use globally.
Stacey, when you're talking about opportunity, is this the type of opportunity you're speaking of?
Absolutely. Firstly, I think what the issue is that we need to start driving is the concept of a circular economy within the specific industry. We have applied, we have shown the successes of applying a circular economy to an industry. We've done that with tires, where tires were a liability to the country, and through the outsourcing of the environmental or the end-of-life program to an independent company called Radisa, the tire industry has been able to set up a viable recycling industry that has created the jobs, remediated the waste, and also driven and sort of created economic value. I think with e-waste we have the same opportunity to be able to do that, and I think it's critical that we have a holistic approach towards dealing with the waste. I think in the past we've had a very focused view in trying to address a particular problem and listening to what the inputs that have been given by Ericsson. We're sort of looking at a program or a problem that's isolated. We need to start looking at this as an international global problem, and what are the best models and mechanisms to use to harness our waste into streams, because recycling is not a cheap business. It's extremely expensive, and I think this is exactly why people aren't being driven into recycling. Recycling is just not profitable without you having a system which ensures that maximum commodity is brought, or waste is brought into the recycling industry, and that it's produced and processed in such a way to ensure that the recycler gets a good quality product to in fact recycle.
Frederick, what will you as Ericsson then do with the e-waste that's coming into South Africa? What's the next step?
Well, when it comes to South Africa, it becomes part of our global end-to-end process, by which we, of course, these are companies that are doing that, but we got very stringent audit processes on how this is managed for it to be made in environmental friendly, occupational hazardous, sort of friendly ways end-to-end. And part of the material will be dealt with in Durban. Part of it will go to that ecosystems, other parts where maybe precious metals are extracted at some points to be resold then into the global exchanges. And what that does in itself is that it reduces the CO2 emissions, because actually reusing is far better for the environment than actually produce and find these metals again in the mines.
All right, Frederick Yaitling and Stacey Davidson joining us in Cape Town. Thank you very much for being a part of our network tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. After the break, we'll talk about the new Lobola app. Stay with us.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. Now, a Johannesburg-based company has developed a smartphone application that calculates lobola estimates of both males and females. All this is purely for entertainment value, but has nonetheless sparked a debate over the practice of paying dowry, which some people would call the bride price. The Lobola Calculator app is not unique to South Africa, as there are other examples from across the world. Here's Tile Khaswane with the details.
The Lobola Calculator has received so much media attention in the last week that the story has even made it onto the online version of the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom.
I wanted to put an app up on the Play Store that can draw attention into South Africa, not to be sensational or anything, but just draw attention, give a light-hearted view of a South African culture.
So, how does it work?
Well, it's quite basic. I've got a few physical questions like height, weight, etc. Then educational background, are you married, have you been married before, do you have kids, and then it just churns out the result.
There are a few examples globally of apps that calculate a dowry estimate. In Africa, arguably the most controversial is the Nigerian one called the Bride Price app. While one can expect to answer the usual questions such as your height, it pushes the boundaries such as highly pricing light-skinned women. A foreign, often Western accent will also increase the worth of a woman. Back in South Africa, the Lobola Calculator app is the vow of the Nigerian extremes. But prospective grooms here at home can also expect the Lobola to hit hard on the pocket.
60,000.
Or 8 cars.
Robert Matsaneng is here in studio with us. Hello, and thank you for being a part of our network.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, how scientific is your app?
How?
How scientific is it?
I'm not a scientist, so it's as scientific as a layman can be, but it's quite accurate. It's quite accurate. I did test it out on a few people.
When you tested it out, you found that, the short ones are worth less than the tall ones? Is that how it works?
For now, let's just say the entire combination plays a part. So you could be short, it could go high. I mean, I saw one article today, Lindiwe Mazibuko got the highest, even got higher than Bonang when they used the app on them.
How much is she worth?
I think Lindiwe Mazibuko was 80,500 bucks, if I remember correctly.
80,500.
Yeah.
So that's how much lobola for the man that wants to marry Lindiwe Mazibuko.
For sure.
All right, can you tell us about the thought process that went into creating this app?
Like I've been saying, it was just to have an app on the Play Store that represents South Africa, and if international people download it, it can bring that attention towards South Africa, spark a conversation perhaps, or a laugh.
And the thought process that went into creating it, what went through your mind, and how did you end up with what you ended up putting in to value the bride?
I don't really understand the question.
In terms of when you sat down and you said, this is the app that I want to have, then what did you have to include in that process in order for you to weigh the price of the bride?
Oh, just the basic questions I asked my parents about lobola negotiations, such as what are just the common questions that asked, and those are the common questions I put in.
And in terms of the response, are you receiving a good response for it?
Yeah, I'm receiving quite a good response. I would say 30% just don't like it, and 70% just love it. They get the point.
And the reasons for the 30%?
I'm stepping on the toes of culture. I'm being disrespectful, and that was just not my intention at all.
And can you tell us about your intention then?
My intention was just to give people a laugh. That's my real intention. And we live in a country of diverse people, and not everyone can get a basic price, how much they would cost if they were to be lobola. Do you know what I mean? So using the app, they can get a roundabout figure.
So you're not planning to make any money out of the app, or a lot of money?
We'll get to that now when you're asking me about the future of the app. Eh?
Well, tell us about the future.
Well. And I thought of this morning. I'm going to make an iOS and BlackBerry version, right? Now, I'm going to attach a price to it, but that price, I pledge that I will donate a large part of it to charity. Since it's gotten so much traction, I was born on the 18th of July, same time as Utata Madiba. So I'm pledging that I'm going to put it up, I'm going to put a price on it, not a lot, nothing more than 10 Rand. And then all proceeds, not all, sorry, a large part of the proceeds I will donate to a charity, probably the Nelson Mandela Hospital Foundation or whichever. Probably I'll open it up for people to give me suggestions.
The inserts told us about the height. We've also found out about the babies. Can you tell us what else is in there that people can expect when they're trying to rate the women they would like to marry?
Or the men. Let's not forget that one.
Lobola for the man?
For the man, it asks the same questions, just that one differs, the sliding scale one. For women, it asks how attractive do you think you are? For a man, it asks, what do you value most in a woman? Personality, looks, or wealth. And then you have a sliding scale, so you can't just pick all of them. You have to move over to one section or the other.
And once all this has been done, and once it's in the iOS store, what are you hoping to achieve?
I'm hoping that it'll continue the same traction, that people will get it as just a fun app, that it'll spark more conversations, and hopefully the elders will explain to us.
All right. Robert Masane, we have run out of time, but thank you very much for being a part of our network tonight.
Pleasure, thank you.
And that's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. We're on News Network at sabc.co.za on email. We'll leave you with the launch of the American Alliance Atlas V551 rocket. It's designed to deliver satellites into orbit. From me and the rest of the network team, have a good one.